Good evening. It's time once again for the HideNet Sunday Night Week in Review. It's Sunday, February 18th, 2018, and my name is Don Oshman, Editor-in-Chief of HideNet Publications. Just for your information, we produce 6 different reports a week: Latin American, European, North American, This Week in Leather, and our international report, and our daily market report, and InstaTrades. So we've got a lot of information if you want it to help build your business better and stronger than it already is. Nuevo Hamburgo, our editor in Latin America, Ronald Guel, reports that Brazilian prices were softly steady. Fresh hides at the packer level came down, but because of the dollar, it didn't do any good to the tanners who were trying to sell their wet blue for $1, and instead of getting in for bids or some kind of bids or some interest between 93 and 98 cents. Speaking of sales, the Brazilian tanners went to the Far East and generated went to Europe and generated $7.6 million in sales for Brazilian tanners this past week. Argentinians raw hides are steady. Paraguay TR1 is unchanged. Guatemala aims to increase their competitiveness, including footwear. Leather footwear suppliers exhibit produced the 2019 in Guanajuato in Mexico. And that's what's going on in Latin America this week. A little bit of what's going on. We don't tell you the whole story. It's a teaser. We want you to subscribe to our market reports and really see what's going on. In America this week, the Lunar New Year, which happened, I think, Thursday, quietly permeates the trade. Very little going on, if anything. That doesn't mean that there's other markets besides the Far East. But, hides can be sold to Mexico, Brazil, and, of course, to Europe. But it's very, very slow because that's where most of Americans' production goes. Steers and cows were steady to lower. And again, very, very little volume. The United States hide and skin and leather industry reported this week that in 2017, exports were $2.08 billion for hides and crest and wet blue. That's a lot of money. And of course, America is one of the major producers next to Brazil of raw hides. Cattle slaughter. GST's sale bankruptcy was approved by a court. So now, in the very near future, I think in a couple of weeks, they should be able to begin normal operations. They've been operating anyway, but now they're going to have the adequate funding to do. And hopefully GST will get a second life. Also, the meat industry, the packing industry in America has filed documents against artificial meat definition. There's some of that going on. The cattle groups are worried about fake meat and doing something about it. Wish we could do that for the leather business. Combined export sales this week were 351,900 hides, plus the domestic consumption of 35,000. And the outstanding fell to 3.8 million pieces, which is good. And shipments were 486,000 pieces. Slaughter exceeded sales again. Out of the last 7 weeks, more hides have been slaughtered or produced than have been reported sold. So then we give our forecast, which is 89% 2 years ago, 86% this year, correct? And our market observations, what's going to happen and why we think it's going to happen in North American hides. In Europe, more buyers, less leather at footwear and leather goods fairs. For example, MyCam and MyPel was in Italy this past week. Andre Gugolo, our European editor, was there, covered the report, and he said, it wasn't good. If you do see leather products like leather footwear, they had a lot of some synthetics in it, or varying degrees of synthetics in it. So bottom line is, it's a tough road for the leather industry, and in footwear especially. Very little optimism now about Lineapel, which I think starts next week. Yeah, I think it does. Or the week after, I should know that. But anyway, much optimism for footwear, leather footwear in Europe, in Italy anyway. Some slaughterhouses tried to increase prices, but the weak dollar interfered. Sheepskins required for leather goods finally saw rising prices again this last week too. So that's good. Otherwise, business is good. The shoe company is doing fine because they're selling mostly synthetic footwear. But the automotive upholstery continues to do well, as well as furniture upholstery. So that's it for this week. Again, international report. We've got over 30 countries covered every single week if you deal around the world. And our This Week in Leather weekly production, This Week in Leather. What else would it be? Has interesting news about our leather industry, what's going on, trends. notable people, so on and so forth. Interesting, by the way, Andrea Guola will have interviews and reports from Lineapel this coming week, I believe. So that'll be interesting too, and that'll be available on our website, but mostly for readers of our European report and This Week of Leather. Again, that's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.